What's up, guys? Hope your week's off to a good start. I'm out here just south of Adair, and I had recorded a video last night, but God just kept telling me, like, there's something more. So I was on my way driving, and I seen this big cross on the side of the highway, and I've seen it hundreds of times, and I just seen it a little different this time though. This is a buddy of mine that I went to school with. We were in the same grade. We played ball together from the time we were tiny all the way up. This is something that his dad built, and it just, with the message that God gave me, it just got louder with me, the meaning behind this. What I want to talk about today, the message that God gave me, is generational curses. And the definition of a generational curse is it's a habit or a behavior that is handed down from generation to generation. And I think a lot of times that term is thrown around too lightly. I think a lot of times it's generational decisions. And I do understand our brain is wired a certain type of way. Addiction and alcohol and things like that run in certain families, and your brain's wired a certain way. So I do get all that. But I do think that we have to make that decision to do things and to be a certain type of way and those things. So what I want to challenge you to do today is make a T-chart, okay? And I want you to list good on the bad, or good on the left, bad on the right. And I want you to list out good traits and bad traits that you got, that you've seen in your father. And I want you to do another one and do it for yourself. And I made a few of my dad, and I didn't ask him permission, so hey, if you're mad, oh well, you got to get over it. And I didn't put all your dirty laundry out there, so don't worry about that either. But one of the good traits that I got from my dad is he's very patient. He's a very patient guy. He's slow to anger, and I got that trait from him, and I'm thankful for that. I've seen my dad deal with a lot of situations to where he could have easily went off the rails and didn't. And I have seen him, get upset when he has to. So, he's not just a pushover. Even Jesus had to flip some tables in the temple one time. But for the most part, he controls it. And as a man, that is a huge trait to have. So I appreciate you giving me an example of that, Dad. He's very persistent. My family, my mom and dad, they were divorced since I was 2. So all I've known is a split household. And he fought for time. He even fought when things were made difficult for him, when they didn't have to be. He never gave up. When it was his weekend, it was his weekend. When it was his holiday, he was always there. So, that example of persistence is something that I got to see. He's very loyal, always loyal to my mom and my stepmom. They got married, I think, when I was 4 or 5, and very loyal guy to his family, his kids, his wife. Now, the things he's bad at, and again, I'm not going to air everything, not that you have a lot, but growing up, he did not set a very good example in how to communicate with women. He likes to shut down, say, nah, any of that, and I'm the same exact way. Avoid conflicts with your wife. And again, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. So that is my goal with this T-chart, is I hope that we all as men can be honest with ourselves and acknowledge some traits and some things that we've gotten and correct them for the better as men, as godly men. The other thing is nicotine. And no, Dad, don't say, oh, I quit. 28 pieces of nicotine gum a day does not mean you quit. That means you quit tobacco, okay? So you're still, and I'm just as bad. If I wasn't eating or sleeping, I was dipping. From the time I was about 16, I made that decision, and I fought it forever. I always joke around, and I would say that if it was possible to get a bag, a drip with it, just a pole and walk around with it, that I would do that. But that wasn't, until God broke that chain for me. So, if you're somebody that is struggling with something like that, ask God to help, and He will deliver you from that. So I'm nicotine free, thank God. And it didn't, my wife asked me to quit, my kids asked me to quit, and I couldn't do it. And it wasn't until God stepped in and took the desire away from me that I was able to actually do it. So that's just a little bit, about my dad on his T-chart and the things that I got from him and that. You know, I did one again, like I challenged you to do for yourself. Let's see what your kids would get from you. And the number one thing I hope that my kids get from me, the trait, is that I praise no matter the situation. I could be, you know, in a hard time, I could be in a good time, and I'm gonna praise God the same either way. I hope they can see that trait and get that. You know, like I said, the ones about my dad, you know, I'm slow to anger. I want them to see that I live every day like there's no time to waste. You know, I say that on Facebook sometimes, you know, live like you got no time to waste. Every day is precious. Don't take it for granted. You know, I talked about the bad with me, you know, communicating. I've got to get better communicating with my wife and not avoiding conflict and things like that. Got to get better at that. You know, like I said, I see my dad be persistent. I'm the same way when it comes to work. If I set a goal to something, like I will do whatever I have to do to win. I will push, I'll do those things, but it almost can be a bad thing for me sometimes. Sometimes that's all I can think about, and I push too hard to where, you know, I'm missing out on time with my family because I'm chasing this goal of work or making this amount of money. I can be selfish sometimes, you know, if I'm just gonna be honest. I always keep it real with y'all. I can be selfish in the fact of I think that my problem is bigger than anybody else's problem when it comes to my family. You know, I've got to change that about myself to where my wife's problems is just as big as the problems I'm facing. They might not be financial problems like the problems I face, but it doesn't matter. They're all the same, and I've got to work on that for myself. And again, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. So I challenge you to do this T-chart. I think it will help you see things that you haven't thought about before. Man, I didn't even know like I was like my dad with that, or you know that you were like your grandpa, like your dad, and it's a chain that we need to break. You know, you might be somebody who your dad ran off when you were a little kid, and I just want you to still make your T-chart, and I think this will help you see it. I want you to just write out he missed out, and that's it. Because he's the one that made the bad decision, and he doesn't get to experience the gift of you as a kid and all of those things. So you are not the one that's missing out on the dad. He is the one that's missing out on a kid. So and you always have your Heavenly Father that is there. He is the one that is all good. There's no bad with him. So he loves you. He wants to have a relationship with you and fill that hole and that missing piece. So I want to jump in the Word, and I studied a lot, and this stuff is just so interesting to me. And I looked at King David, and I wanted to see how was King David, what are some of the traits he had, or what are the things he struggled with, and how did that go to Solomon, his son, and then his son Rehoboam, and then his son Abijam, and then his son Asa. And I did a lot of studying on that, and I'm not gonna have time to share everything. I'm already 8 minutes into this video, and I could talk about it for hours, but I want to try to keep these messages short like always. But King David, we all know his big sin. One night he was walking out on a balcony. He sees this pretty naked lady taking a bath, just being a guy, taking a little look, right? And he acted on it and brought her to his room, slept with her, got her pregnant. Now Bathsheba was married to Uriah the Hittite. Uriah was a soldier in David's army. So what does David do? David sends Uriah out to the front lines, knowing he's going to get killed. And Uriah dies. You know, David takes Bathsheba as a wife. So not only did he commit adultery, he also committed murder. So Solomon is born. Solomon is Bathsheba's daughter. And I got to thinking, you know, when King David died and Solomon comes into reign, and if you know anything about Solomon, you know, if you look up who was the wisest man that ever lived, Solomon's name will come up. And I got to looking at, okay, so what did Solomon grow up seeing? He grew up seeing his dad, you know, having a problem with women, you know, lust and those things. And I'm going to pick it up, 1 Kings chapter 11. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women. So again, there's that lust, that love for women. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from among the Hittites. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them because they will turn your hearts to their gods. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyways. He had 700 wives. So that right there should have instantly negated him from being the wisest man on earth, because I have the best wife that's ever lived, and one's enough. Could you imagine 700 wives? But then I got to asking questions to God, and I was like, why 700 wives? Why so many? And really, he answered me with questions that I had, and it was like, is it possible that when Solomon was a kid, I doubt that King David had him out in the front yard playing catch, right? I doubt that King David had Solomon at night tucking him in, kissing him, telling him how much he loves him, and good night. I doubt that happened. So is it possible that Solomon chased that hole of attention and used women to fill that hole? And I think the answer would probably be yeah, it's very possible. God warned against going with foreign women specifically, and we'll look at in Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God, as his father David had done. So eventually, these women get in his ear and they pull his heart away. And I relate to Solomon. I always say I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, and this is something that I've never shared with anybody. When I was younger and on Friday nights, I knew if I scored 5 touchdowns, I would be in the paper. And I knew that my dad's church would put that up in his hallway in his church, and he would walk by and he would see it, and people in his congregation would talk about me to him, and that was a thing that I chased. I chased that attention. And you might think to yourself, man, 5 touchdowns is a lot to get in the paper, but hey, I didn't have that hometown name, man. I had to fight the fight, get it from the mud. But now, the joking aside, though, I get this on being from a split household of, my dad, like I said, he was always there, but it was a time when I was older that our relationship was a little strained, and I seeked that attention. So, men, if your marriage is on the rocks today, you should do, and you have kids, you should do whatever you can to fix it, because a split household, it affects them kids so much. And it took me a long time to deal with that and fix that childhood trauma. It took God fixing it, not me. I didn't do anything. God stepped in and revealed things to me and to fix that. So if your marriage is on the rocks, fix it. I don't care. You say, well, you don't know my wife. My wife does this, does that. No, it's on you as a man. Your wife is a mirror of you. If your wife sucks, you suck. And that's just being as plain and simple. And there was a lot of time as a husband, I sucked. And my justification was, oh, my wife is this. And, kind of getting off, this isn't a marriage deal, this is a generational curse, but look at yourself, fix yourself when it comes to that. So, Solomon gets led away by these foreign women, advice in his ear, and we go to his son, Rehoboam. So what has Rehoboam grown up seeing? Okay? When he's seen his father go from on fire for God, building stuff like this, right? Solomon built God's temple. So he built something huge, and now Rehoboam sees his dad getting bad advice and going to these foreign gods. So when King Solomon dies and Rehoboam comes in as king, the leaders of Israel come to him and they're like, hey, your dad was a harsh king. How are you going to be? And he said, give me 3 days. Let me think about it, and I'll come back to you, or come back to me and I'll give you an answer. So he goes to his old council and says, what should we do here? And they say, you need to lighten the load on these people. If you are a servant to them today, these people will be your subjects forever. And then he goes to his young council, his boys, right? The people he's grown up with, and they say, don't listen to those complainers. Tell them, if your dad was harsh, you're going to be even harsher. They say that tell them, my father beat you with whips, but I'll beat you with scorpions. How Tony Montana talk is that, man? But here's the thing, is those guys didn't have to face the consequence of this advice. How many times in life do we get advice from people that the outcome has no impact on? Does that not mean seek counsel? Yes, if I'm dealing with a situation, but be selective of who you go to. And I would probably go to somebody who's lived that, had been through that experience, and God has either helped them through it or they learned from it to where they can tell you, don't do it this way. And but you know, he had seen that example of taking bad advice. So which one do you think he goes with? He goes with the young guys. The Israelites come back, the Israel leaders come back, and they say, you know, what are you, how are you going to be? And he says, you know, I'm going to be, if my dad was whips, I'm going to whip them with scorpions. And so they say, fine, you know, we'll do our own thing. And that's when they branched off. And God did leave Rehoboam over the tribe of Judah, just because, you know, he made that promise to David that his descendants would always be over Judah. But Israel breaks off, and they elect Jeroboam as the king. And Rehoboam loses all of that over some bad advice. So the rest of his reign, it is talked a little bit in chapter 14, verse 22. During Rehoboam's reign, the people of Judah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, provoking his anger with their sin, for it was even worse than that of their ancestors. So he's seen his dad go off to idols, and so that's what Rehoboam worshipped. Now, Rehoboam's son is Abijam. So when Rehoboam passes and Abijam comes into rule, his chapter is so short. And I got to thinking, what if God wrote a new Bible with your grandpa, your dad, and you? How would your chapter look? Would it look like this or not? Pretty much his chapter is summarized in verse 3. Chapter 15, verse 3. He committed the same sins as his father before him, and he was not faithful to the Lord his God, as his ancestors David had been. You know, what if that says that about you? He's just like, Marshall's just like his dad. Marshall's a drunk like his dad. Marshall's a liar just like his dad was. Or I mean, you fill the blank. If that's all God had to say about you, I would not want that. So, Abijam followed Rehoboam, worshiping idols, taking bad advice, I'm sure, all those things. And we look at his son, Asa. Now, Asa, King Asa. King Asa was that dude. Asa began to rule over Judah in the 20th year of Jeroboam's reign in Israel. He reigned in Jerusalem 41 years. His grandmother was Micah, the granddaughter of Absalom. Asa did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, as his ancestor David had done. He banished the male and female prostitutes from the land and got rid of all the idols his ancestors had made. He even deposed his grandmother Micah from her position as queen mother because she had made an Essene Asherah pole. Now, this was a big deal. This wasn't the family-owned tire shop and grandmama's running the counter. The queen mother in those days had big political pull, especially when the king was younger. They helped make a lot of the decisions. So this was a huge deal. And maybe this is God telling us that there's going to be some family. If you're going to be King Asa and you're going to be the one that makes a change that says, no, my dad was not following God. My dad did all this, you fill the blank, but not me. I'm going to be that dude. I'm going to be that one that changes it for my family, that sets a good example for my kids and shows them how to live a godly life and be a godly father. There might have to be some people that you distance yourself from that are going to stay in their old ways. They're still going to do those things. They're going to chase those idols and things and give bad advice. Love them still. I'm not saying that, but might have to distance yourself from some negative people to keep it off of yourself. We always want to pull people up. I always say that, but you got to be standing to help others up. So distance yourself from some people if you have to. The other thing Asa did is he went on to make a treaty with another king to fight against the Israelites. It's just a bunch of cool stuff, and I might talk about it later, but just due to time, King Asa, his son is Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat took it even to the next level. So are you going to be that dad today that makes that decision to start something new in your family? Maybe you had a dad that had an all good side and not much bad, but he wasn't chasing God. Maybe he's been chasing a legacy to leave for you and showing you how to make all this money and this and that, which is great things to do. But if we don't do the first thing, the most important thing, which is be a godly example and show them what is truly important in life. I look at this cross and how cool is this, that something that his grandkids are going to see and his kids after that. And I hope that they all, I mean, I know my friend is a good guy. I hope they all follow suit. And one person can spark and change a whole family trajectory and cut them curses and all of those things. I know that my stepdad, you know, growing up, my stepdad, he's passed away now. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think of how to even start this. But my stepdad was a very angry guy, and it didn't take much and he'd flip off the rails like that. But I got to thinking, you know, in doing this whole message, I thought about not even talking about it, because I mean, he showed me examples, but just my personal opinion is more the bad side. And if I'd have seen him in Walmart when I was 22, I'd have fought him, and someone would have had to pull me off of him, because I'd have kept going until that's how I felt towards him. Today at 32, I'd have walked up and I'd have given him a hug and tell him, dude, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry you've let life beat you up so much that you have all this anger built up. Like, I see you. You know, this guy, I know that his mom died at some point when he was younger. I don't know how old. His first wife passed away. You know, and then you know, he gets these kids, and who knows what his pressure was like at work that he never dealt with. You know, when we run to things and he'd buy boats and buy cars to fill these holes and do all this stuff, but that hole was there, and it grew until it's just so much anger built up that now you don't even know why you're mad. You're getting mad over stuff that doesn't even matter, but you just have a heart that's full of anger. And I would have hugged him and said, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry life has gotten you like this, and there's a way out. There's a way to release that. And 22-year-old me would have fought him, you know, but as I'm a dad, and I've experienced a little bit of life, and I've been to the bottom. I've been beat up. I've let things get on me and just pound on you. And I'm sure there's someone watching this video right now. I don't know where you're at. I don't know if you're in a truck. I don't know if you're in your office at home. But I know that life can get hard, and it can beat on you. And as a man, you know, a lot of times when you're hurt, or, you know, something hurts us or makes us feel insecure, or we lash out in anger. And that's our go-to. It's like our defense mechanism. But I'm here to tell you that God told me to tell you that there's another way to deal with this. There is a way to fill that hole, but it takes full just desire to give that chain to God. I don't know if that chain is, like I said, alcohol. I don't know if it's lying, people's opinions, like I had said it was, you know, because that's the thing, is I chased attention. Well, as an adult, I care what everyone thought about me. I chased that. I don't know what your chain is, but I'm telling you, we serve a God that can break any chain that you might have. So, if you have that Asa in you. You have that ability to be that one in your family to break them chains with God. Let God step in. You can't do it, but God can. And all you have to be is willing to say, God, I am ready to be that one in my family today that starts something that my kids are going to see, their grandkids are going to see, and you are going to use this family to impact people, to change lives, and do amazing things. So God, I give it to you today. I give me. Show me how to do this, because we don't know. Show us how, and we're willing. And I love you guys, and I'm sorry to get emotional, but it's just stuff that I just, you know, I haven't went to in a long time. But as always, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. And as always, let's grow and let's go. Love y'all. See you.